Welcome to an educational video on the topic of decentering whiteness in the classroom, an informative guide to teaching English learners. The topic of decentering whiteness in the classroom, as it pertains to teaching English language learners, is a topic that there is limited amount of resources for. So our focus here is to create an additional resource that educators and future researchers can use to build upon. We're simply going to go through some of the definitions that pertain to the subject, and we're also going to go through some strategies for teachers that they can implement in their classrooms, and hopefully this is helpful to them, and if not, at the very least, insightful and sparks a conversation.
So first off, what does it mean to decenter whiteness? Decentering whiteness means being open to a broader point of view of what it means to be a scholar and what success looks like. It means reframing how we perceive intelligence and what we see as academic excellence. It means no longer believing that success is derived from the attainment of whiteness. Whiteness, or the degree of attainment of it, is often used as the metric of success in our educational institutions, and especially in our English classes. Whiteness is often correlated with speaking standard American English, as that is the dialect of the dominant culture, which is made up of middle-class whites. In white-centered teaching, whiteness is put forth as a goal that could be attained through acquiring proficiency in standard American English. We are taught in school that standard American English is the only correct way to speak English, and this contributes to the marginalization of speakers of other varieties of English, as well as those that speak English with an accent. This contributes to us thinking that speakers of other varieties of English don't speak English correctly, even though their varieties of English are just as linguistically valid. And it also perpetuates the ideology that those who speak those other varieties are less intelligent. Even people who speak those dialects or varieties start to believe it when they come into school being told that the way they, their family, and their friends speak shows unintelligence or is not English. This leads to them believing that school is not for them and leads to the adoption of apathetic attitudes towards school. All the while, those that speak standard American English already, or that conform and start speaking their native dialect, achieve better social and academic outcomes because they are perceived as more intelligent subconsciously or unsubconsciously, because they conform with the dominant standards of English that serve to uphold white supremacy.
So one of the most insightful resources that was available to us was actually getting to interview an ELD professional. I was fortunate enough to do an interview through email of a teacher at Sinaloa Middle School in Simi Valley. Her name's Catherine Royal, and she is not only an English language development teacher, she's also the ELD department chair. So she was very knowledgeable, and through her, we gained a really insightful perspective, and we're going to go through some of the strategies that she came up with and shared with us. One strategy, a simple strategy for decentering whiteness, is to stop seeing English language learners, as like them trying to overcome a language barrier, but really as emerging bilinguals. They will and have the capacity to speak both languages. Just because they're not there yet doesn't mean that they're deficient in any way. They are just emerging into these two languages versus trying to overcome their deficit. One small strategy could be to ensure that whenever any paperwork needs to be sent home, that it's not only in English but also in their home target language. Um, the students, as they are emerging bilinguals, can in fact translate and help their parents navigate uh, the English language as well. But that's an additional burden on the student, and it just puts further stress on them. And as a teacher, that we can relieve that tension off of their shoulders by ensuring that any of the administrative work isn't directly placed on the student as their sole responsibility. It's really important to reduce the stigma surrounding English language learners and their accents. Many of them feel inadequate because they think that they aren't speaking correctly. And one strategy to help them overcome this is not to overcorrect them, but to remind them that trying is part of the process. And if they are too embarrassed to speak, then they're not going to make language. It's important to have those conversations with them in their home language when possible, so that they begin to get comfortable. And then when they speak English, to speak with them conversationally, not just academically,